Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. It's Wednesday, it's April 13th. This will be our chart listen for the day. And the rally continued from yesterday. You can see we were traded up and it just continued on. We had a nice little two-tiered channel here. We had an overshoot, then the break, moved to a new high, and then we just kind of corrected. Uh, really, for the most part, this was a trading range today. Early on, it was a much smaller, tighter, but then when we broke loose, you just take a measured distance, and you can see it was a perfect measured move so far. We might have went one tick higher right here eventually, it looks like. But so it's just a two-tiered channel, and this ends up being um, a midline because this is just the lower half of it. I'm doing this a little bit early. It's not quite 3:15 yet, so the market's still going, so this thing's still kind of moving around. But the reason I've got some things I need to do this afternoon, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. It's after 2 o'clock, so we don't mark any trades after 2 anyway. And I forgot to change the colors on a couple of these here. Always getting ahead of myself here. But we'll back out. We'll talk about the trades and probably get through this pretty quick. Not a lot of trades today, not as many. Once we got through here, you just had to kind of be patient. This trade is right at 9:30. It's a little bit after 9:30, but generally, even during the news, the price action is not wrong. Um, and lately, crude news has really been affecting the market, so you had to be a little careful. And you can see everybody was just a little careful going into 9:30, and then the movement started again. And that's really what was going on here. So just you're better off just to stay out of that. I did mark this trade because it was worth mentioning, but it was just this bar. Let me go ahead and back out. We'll see what time that bar formed, closed. It closed at 9:31, so it was about 2 minutes after. So you could see it didn't really drive the market crazy. It did push it down before it hit the bottom and bounced higher. So if you wanted to take that trade, it wasn't moving too crazy or too fast. So I went ahead and marked it. But generally, you can see it just stays flat when a big news item is coming out. And generally, oil or crude is not a big, you know, deal with the ES, but lately it has been. So you got to pay attention to it until you don't have to pay attention to it. So anyway, let's talk about the first trade. The first one I saw, I came in, we were working back to the other side. You never really got a setup off the trend line here. You got a nice bullish bar. Um, you might you might have taken that bounce off that, but really you always need to let this bar close first. It actually went out the upper side and traded down and then went back up again. So um, I don't think I would have been looking for it to break above this bar because it's just too neutral. It's a one bar trading range basically. And so you would have needed a break above this bar, which never happened. And you would also, that bar is so large that I'd almost let it break higher and drop a limit order and let it come back if I was going to enter here. And if you'd have done that, um, but it never broke higher, so you didn't have to worry about it. That bar is 11 ticks, so it takes 13 ticks to enter that and to enter above it and put your stop below it. So it's really just too big. So I think you were better off to wait. And plus, you did get an overshoot up here, so a lot of times that leads to your break, and so that's another clue to sit tight. And there's a couple of ways. There's one shorter term trend line right here, but I do believe that you just had to play this one kind of like a range as well. You can see that working across there. Um, then you got your lows here. This is kind of a failed break lower. You probably could have entered on this first bar, but if you look, it's got a lot of stem, so it just wasn't bullish enough. So I think you're better off to wait on the second entry, counting off the lows, and that came here. And so just go long right there if you want to get long here. And we're looking for a retest of the high. So, um, and then you got a failed second entry short. It actually failed twice, but it never broke higher, so you didn't get to enter till here. So you really had like a double failure. And when you got this second failure, um, if you'd have got a break higher earlier, this would have been worth entering again. But I like adding on here or re-entering here, and you would have been out then, but then you get another chance to enter right here. Um, and to fail that many times, turning down every time and turning right back up, we're probably going to make a new high. And so I like entering on that one. Then this is where it just kind of got iffy. You got a little trend line working here. You got to close outside a new low and then a bounce. But you got to take a first entry there, and I think it's a little risky. And by the time you get another entry, it's way up here at the top. And you definitely don't, even though there's a failed second entry short there, you don't want to go long at the high of the day on a break above. You're better off to look for the failure. And in fact, you probably could have considered going short there. Um, I don't have any problem with going short there. I didn't mark it, but there's really a short there. I didn't see it really this morning. I missed it. But you could go short there. And then again, we already talked about it, just kind of working sideways. But notice what happens up here on this. Let me move this out of the way. You got a high, you get a pullback first entry, pullback second entry, and it fails, and you get that big bearish bar. Nothing's closing above that line. Um, we're probably headed at least to test these lows and maybe all the way down here to where the range lows are. So I like that one. And if you got that one, you could have ridden it all the way down, exited a tick or so in front of that last close right there, and you would have exited within a tick or two of the low. And then it bounces on. I don't like going long down here because you don't have a break of this trend line yet, and you actually get a close outside here, and you try to make a new low, but it can't. And then it just kind of stacks up. So you don't want to go long out of that congestion unless you get another little tick lower or a break lower of some kind, and you never get it. So you just have to watch this one go. And you can see there we got a break, moved to a new high, and then it sold off. Um, there's a failed second entry short right there. Notice you got a new low. You're moving up. First entry, pull back second entry. And that's a nice bullish reversal right off there. That's that reversal pattern type deal. And again, you're looking for it to come back up here and test the highs. It does go up and test the last high and turns down. And if this bar would have been bearish here, I would have liked it since it's so far away from the EMA and it's looking like another failed break higher. I would have liked it to the downside, but it's more neutral than anything. So I just didn't like it. Notice it moves down and you get that trend line off those first few slants there, and it fits right there, and you get a failed second entry short right there. Or actually, you get a second entry long. It's not really a second entry short. I'm sorry. You're pulling back first entry, pull back second entry. So it's a second entry long, not a failed second entry short there. The second entry short is not till over here. And this is almost a repeat pattern of the one we saw earlier over here. Because notice it goes lower breaks higher a couple times. Well, let me finish this trade and then we'll talk about that one. But you're pulling back first entry, pull back second entry, and that confirms that's your third touch of your trend line. It confirms that there is a little congestion there, but all these bars are ending fairly bullish. You might have used a limit order, let it break higher and drop the limit order in just to get a little better entry, but I'm okay with just going long with a stop there, And then it turns down again, it bounces right off the trend line, gives you another second entry long. Okay, sorry, I had a slight interruption there. So we were talking about this trade. There's your failed second entry short right there, and when it broke higher. And actually, you could almost add on right here, but it's going long right into that, to the tick, right into that previous resistance. And you see it did get a little resistance there before it broke through. So I don't think I would risk one past this entry here. But again, this is almost a repeat pattern of, I believe it was this one right here. Yep. It's almost a perfect repeat pattern. So, um, but anyway, it turns out to be a really nice move higher once it broke on through. So, but they probably trapped a lot of people short right there when it turned down. So, I mean, really looking at that, I probably should make it at least green because when it broke, look how bearish that is. When it broke lower, you had to be, you had to know it's probably going to trap some unsuspecting traders, and when it push it higher, we'll go ahead and make it green. But I don't like it. I'm a little leery going long right into that previous resistance point. It did push on up, turned out to be a great trade. And where would you look to exit? Right before you got to the upper side, right in there. And that would have gotten you out within a point of the top or so. And of course, you're moving back, and guaranteed some of you probably went long right here. But look at that trend channel working down. There's no break. This is the first close outside, then a new low. Then it tries to go longer. This bar is too neutral, so you really need to wait on a second entry, and you don't get it. And you could really go short here. There's a double top right there. This is like a breakout pullback short right here. And the reason I didn't like going short here is because it's right into that trend line. Even though it pushed on through, I don't think you want to risk that. But when it pulls back here and still doesn't go higher, this is like a double test and a trap right here. And so I like it to test this low again. It actually pushes much lower than that. And so now you got your break. You got a couple of legs down to a new low. Then you get a second entry long counting off this low right here, and that's a fairly bullish bar. I really thought it would go on that time, but it's good for a scalp or a little more, and then it backs up. So, and again, that's another fairly aggressive trade. You're really, this is a borderline, just almost skipping it, but there's some reasons to want to take that trade because you've had your close outside and two legs down, and you got a higher low here with a nice bullish reversal type bar, but it is right back into that resistance point, even though we're kind of working both sides of it pretty regularly now. But you got to be really careful. And you can see the market just didn't have any direction here. You're swinging back and forth across this previous resistance, and it hadn't really held as support or resistance. It doesn't hold till support till here. And by that time, you're going back and forth, and this is kind of no man's land. So I don't think it's worth entering until you get the failed second entry short, which comes here. Notice the new low. You got one leg up, first entry, second leg up, second entry. So you got two measured legs up and a failed second entry short that bounces off the EMA and the trend line. Go long right there, because now you're probably going to head back up and test this high. We haven't made a new high yet after the break of this channel, and there's probably two tiers here. It doesn't really matter, but you can see there's two tiers in that. And look at that gap go right over it. I show people that all the time. There's something to that. It's interesting how that works. But yeah, that's the first break of this two-tiered channel. So now you make your new high, and then you correct again. And but that was a nice long. And then, of course, this is your measured move up. You've got your close outside, a big move up, a perfect measured move of this from here to here, and then from here to here. And it turns down right off of it. Look how bearish, look how far we are away from the EMA. I like that trade for just to move at least back to the EMA. And you never know when you catch one of those, it just takes off again. And pushes lower again, and you get a second entry long here. This is really a failed second entry. You could treat it. It's not technically, it's not a failed second entry short, but you can almost. This is a double bottom here, so you can treat that like a new low, and then first entry, second entry. But more than that, you tested this support area umpteen times right across here. can see that. There's a double test right there, and then a little trout going lower and it turns up. So, and this makes a higher close. So, really, if you moved it up to the closes right there, that's a perfect bounce. So, I like going long there. It's like a trout, but more than anything, it's like a bounce off this low, and it's like a double, triple test of that level. And when you test something multiple times, if this wouldn't have been after two, I'd say go long right there, and you would have. That's another great setup. So. But anyway, that was pretty much it for today. I apologize for the interruption there. Probably was just a blink for you guys. I hope I didn't miss something when I came back because I was gone a few minutes and I didn't remember exactly what we left off talking about. So I hope I didn't drop something in mid sentence there. But anyway, not as many trades today. There are a few good ones here, a few runners, not a whole lot, but there's enough trades here to hit your daily target like always. You don't generally, I would say on an average ES day, you have somewhere around 8 setups. And so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then we got 11 today. And if you throw in the green ones, you got 14 or 15 of them. So um, plenty of trades. We just gotten kind of spoiled lately because we usually get this many by noontime lately, or 11 o'clock because it's just been so volatile. These kind of days generally will throw people, and the thing you got to realize is that notice how we're all day long swinging above and below the EMA. That's more of a range, and you can trade it both ways, and you got to be careful about getting chopped up. So you got to make sure you're reading it properly. You got to draw your short-term trend lines and follow the rules on them. So I hope that's helpful. But anyway, I'm not going to drag this one out today. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back to do our final one tomorrow, and I'll probably take the Friday off, and we'll be done for the week. But I hope you're having a good trading week. So far, it's been a really good week. We've had some really good movement. Yesterday was a great day, and even though you didn't get the kind of day you had yesterday today, there were still some really good trades here and a few runners as well. So, but I want to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.